Welcome, this is my short course all on YouTube on how to make your first 1000 bucks from content. Today we're talking about the buying questions. The only 5 questions you need to answer to get somebody from I kinda want this to I'm getting this. Hi, my name is Jordan Parker. I'm the guy who creators come to when they want to scale their business or when they're annoyed by the algorithm stealing all of their money. Today you will learn the 5 buying questions and how to use them in your offer so people want to actually buy, like a lot. First, the 5 buying questions. What's in it for me? How does it work? Why should I trust you? How much? And should I get this later? People have those 5 questions in that order every single time before they make a purchase. Very often they don't even realize it, but it's always those 5 questions and it's always in that order. And when you answer those questions well, you start seeing your conversions rise, you see yourself working less for every single sale, and you see your business growing. And if you're still struggling to find your first customer, once you figure the audience and the positioning, then you focus on those buying questions and it's pretty much you're guaranteed to close. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about the first 3 questions. What's in it for me? How does it work? And why should I trust you? When it comes to the pricing question and should I get this right now question, aka the buying triggers question, we'll cover those in future videos because otherwise this is going to be super long. So one by one, question number 1 is what's in it for me? People want to know what they're getting from whatever you're selling. This is a very obvious thing, but so many different offers on the market completely botch it up. They're trying to be too fancy and they're promising something that their audience frankly doesn't even understand. So to answer this question correctly, you nail 2 parts. The first is the problem and the second is the packaging. The problem needs to be boring. It is one big hairy thing that your audience currently is struggling with, that they hate in their lives, that you're going to solve fast and efficiently for them. That's it. We already talked about the problem, we already talked about the audience. If you're solving this for your audience, just name the damn problem and use their words. Don't try to be fancy, don't try to be creative, don't be cute with it. Just call the problem what it's called. You don't need to be fancy here, and if you're fancy, you're going to make your life harder. Do this part first. Then the second component of this is we want to take this problem and package it in a way that is appealing. Now the explanation I have for packaging is a 40-minute one at the very least, so we won't cover the whole thing here because it will be very long and you're way too early to worry about the details there, but I'll give you 2 very important things. Your offer, we always talk about 2 things, and again, your offer is just an invitation for people to buy something. So your invitation is going to talk about 2 things: what people are getting and what you're doing. What most people do is they talk 80% of the time about what they are doing as the person providing the service or product, and 20% of the time they talk about what the person is getting. You want to do the opposite. Spend almost all of your time talking about what the person is getting, how is it different and how is it awesome, and then just 20% of the time giving the very rough basic details about what you're doing, just enough so the person knows you're doing something differently, but with 0 of the actual implementation stuff that you care about. Because people don't care about how you get them results. They only want to know if those results will work for them and how much it is going to cost them. And how much it's going to cost them is very often more about time and energy and not really about cash that much. And sure, how much money something is going to cost is important, but you'll find that people very often care more about how much time and energy they're wasting and way less than the cash than you think. So focus your packaging in terms of what they're getting, in terms of how is their life changing, in terms of what benefits they're getting. Don't focus on what you're doing. No one cares about what you're doing. Question number 2 is how does it work? But before we get to that, I'm inviting you to join Creator Income. I spent the last 15 years stealing all of the best insights on how to run a successful, massively big business from massively big companies, and I'm now sharing all of those in Creator Income. And they're all customized to help a creative business scale. If that's interesting, join from the link below. That gets us to question number 2. How does it work? When it comes to how does it work, people want 2 specific things. Number 1 is they need to know your process. They need to know your process, not because they care about the details, they don't give a shit, but they care about your process so that they can see your process is different than everyone else's. Because people who are buying things usually have bought several solutions before you. Almost guaranteed they've bought several solutions before you. So they need some reassurance that they're not buying the same shit they bought last time, and this time it has the potential of working. Which of course brings us to the second component of how does it work, which is the potential of your process. When you explain your process, people need to feel that this is different and impactful and has a chance of working. It's not simply everyone else does design on Figma and I do my designs using Photoshop. That's not the point. The point is you need to have a way of doing things that feels different enough that people look at it and say, holy shit, this is remarkable, this is amazing, I need to do it this way. A lot of your efforts in delivering your service early on is to be very critical about what you're doing and finding all of the places that do not quite work, the places that confuse your clients, and the places that sound good but aren't really that that effective. The more you trim those and the more you improve your process, the higher the potential it just oozes, and people are very attracted to this potential. And by the way, to make this easy, document your process, throw all of that at an AI and ask it, hey, what can I do differently here? How can I make this more efficient? You would be shocked by how many things even AI catches. Finally, the third and last question that your offer needs to cover. Why should I trust you? People need to know that you're worth investing their hard-earned money into. They don't just want to throw money at a random person. They're looking for a bargain. They found someone who feels so cheap for what they're offering. And cheap here doesn't mean that you're charging very little money. Cheap here means that you're charging so much less compared to the value you provide. So you need to show people that you're trustworthy. And in the last video, we covered exactly how you can do that. So here I'm going to cover two other aspects on how to build trust with your audience. The first one is the promise that you make, and the second one is the parameters of your offer. First, the promise. Pick the problem that your audience has and solve that. Don't add other shit. Don't make it complicated. Don't try to solve every single problem they have. The more focus you have on the problem you're solving, the more believable it is. If I come to you and say, hey, I'll fix your entire business in 2 days, that's not quite believable. Like, there's so many things that I don't know. The chances of me being able to deliver that are kind of low. And for many people, I might be able to do that, but they still won't trust me. So I'll never mention that because that would be absolutely silly. So what you do is you pick a specific problem, you promise to solve that, and you don't promise anything else. The second component of your promise is the parameters of that promise. What's happening is when people come to you, if you just promise them something, no matter how small, they'll think that it's kind of suspicious unless you add some limits to it, unless you add some caveats and some situations in which this will not work. If you don't do that, you feel desperate and they know that you haven't done much client work before. So what you do is you put constraints over what you're doing. For example, when you promise something, you give a very specific constraint of the things that your promise covers and the things that your promise does not cover. You are very clear from the get-go about what exactly people are getting. You don't change your mind. You promise them one thing and you give them that thing. If you promised a landing page design, you give them a landing page design. You don't give them 7 other designs and 70 other things as a bonus. You just give them what you promised. Next, you want to be honest. When you make a promise, you want this promise to be honest. And when you're honest, that actually makes your offer even smaller, which makes it even more believable. And that's because the market works in the opposite way of what most people think. Because most people think that they just need to make the biggest promise possible and that gets the biggest audience and the biggest amount of buyers. That's not how it works. People don't trust big promises because they feel dishonest. If you highlight how honest you are so that you can keep your promise, people notice that and they want to buy more because they trust you more. And finally, with that honesty comes setting the right expectations. You can't just promise people without thinking of what they'll expect from that promise. You need to think from their perspective as well and what they will get from your offer, what they'll get from your promise, what they'll get from everything that you've said. Because you might factually say the right things, but if they feel the wrong things or if they think the wrong things, then you did a horrible job and they will expect the wrong things from you, and then they will be disappointed when you give them what you promised them. So spend a lot of time and testing on this part. Be extra critical about what you're promising people, and is there any chance of them misunderstanding it? And if there is an even small chance of them misunderstanding it, clear that up. You want what you promise and what people understand to be the exact same thing at any single point. Because you might do everything correctly and perfectly, but if people expect the wrong things, you still fail to deliver on your promise. So be careful with your expectations. They're very, very important. And that was it for this video. Take those 3 questions and make sure that your offer answers them. And then when you have that, go below and find the next video, which is going to cover the how much, the pricing aspect of your offer, and how much money you should be charging, and what is the right answer to the how much question so that you get the maximum amount of buyers. I'll see you there.